Good morning, and welcome to the Wayne County Board of Elections. We'll get started with approving today's agenda. Need a motion?
Madam Chair, I recommend approval of today's agenda as printed.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we approve today's agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Next on our agenda, we have the discussion and scheduling of preliminary consideration of Register of Deeds election protest.
Yeah, we received an election protest this morning at 9:56 a.m. regarding the Register of Deeds contest from Tina Arnder. I'm going to turn it over to
Okay.
Andrew.
So the election protest was filed under 163-180-182.9. Specifically, it alleges that the protest concerns the manner in which the votes were counted or tabulated. Since that's the case, the board must address that prior to the canvass. So if you recall in the earlier protest that we had several months ago, the first step would be a preliminary consideration. So that can be done today if the board so chooses, if you're ready to address that. I know it was only filed at 10 o'clock, so the board may need some time to read over that. I believe there's going to be a recess, and you all can come back this afternoon. If you want to schedule it, the preliminary consideration, then you can as well. The only restriction by statute is that the canvass for that race cannot be delayed more than 3 days. The state board is of the opinion that that's till Monday. So if you wanted to recess this meeting, canvass all the other races, and then have a preliminary consideration Monday, that would be allowed as well. You do not have to hear from either one of the parties. It's in your discretion. You can allow them to speak only with respect to the probable cause, whether or not we can move to a full hearing. But you can make this decision based off the protest. So what needs to be done right now is there needs to be a consensus on when we're going to have the preliminary consideration. I do know, and I looked this up as well, there's some concerns about notice to the parties. Because it actually concerns the way that the votes were counted. The protester was told at the time of filing that the protest will be heard at the time of the canvass. The other affected parties, the statute just allows notification as far as in advance as possible. So given that this was filed at 10 o'clock, I don't think you need to hold up notifying the candidate who at this time is, the winner. You don't need to hold up your consideration in order to give her notice. If you want to move forward, you can. So, if you have any other questions about it, I know it's a little bit unusual because it may hold up the canvas.
We need to recess this morning anyway to do our manual edits and finish up with some of our administrative work in order to canvass this election based on these hearings. So I don't see any problem since we have to come back anyway, doing the preliminary consideration this afternoon at that time. That would give us time as well to contact both parties that's the time it will be considered.
Yeah. Works for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have a specified time that we're going to recess?
So when you recess, after you go through your hearings that you have now, when you recess, you just need to recess to a specific time,
Okay.
and then you come back, and then we can proceed then.
All right.
Yeah, and we need probably about 2 to 3 hours, if possible. So.
Okay.
Okay.
2 or 3?
3 would be great.
3 o'clock?
Well, this is
After we
after we do
yeah.
after we.
After that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so the final part of our administrative processes are the absentee ballot challenge hearings. You have a list on your packet there of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 voters who have felony convictions but cast a ballot in this election. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 voters who attempted to cast 2 ballots in this election. And then we have 3 deceased voters. So out of those 15, we have 1 who has shown for his hearing. And it's basically the burden of evidence is on us. So I guess we'll start with his, since he's here, and give him the chance to participate in it.
Who is it?
Who is the,
This is Mr. William Earl Taylor, and we challenged him administratively on the grounds that he cast 2 ballots in this election. And so by law, we send them notice, which we did, and they have the right to show up in person and contest our evidence.
so we researched it, and it showed that he had voted in person at the library and had also submitted an absentee ballot.
Correct.
Okay. Now, one of his votes did count, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
You want to get down? Hello. Come on in. You can have a seat right over here. Move this out of the way. See? All right, so this is just a normal part of our canvass proceedings. Anytime we feel that voters have, in your case, submitted 2 ballots for an election, we administratively challenge, and that's what we did on election day, and that's why we sent you this letter of notice of that. And the letter states, I'll read it for you all. The Wayne County Board of Elections records reflect that you have both returned an absentee by mail ballot and voted in person. This may have happened because you were not aware that your absentee by mail ballot had been received or accepted by the County Board of Elections. When this happens, the Board of Elections must enter a challenge, which is a proceeding to ensure that an unlawful vote does not count. If your challenge is successful, your second vote will not count. And then it goes into the board will conduct a challenge hearing at the county canvas, which is held in person at 11 a.m. on Friday, November 13th at the County Board of Elections office. If the information in this letter is correct, no further action from you is required, and the second ballot will not count. If you believe the information is an error, please contact our office immediately. You have a right to be heard by the board at the challenge proceeding. And so the information that we have here is that, and you are William Earl Taylor, correct? Okay. And so the information that we have here is that on this date, which was October 30th, 2020, you voted at the library early?
Yeah, and he told me that I was voted.
They told you that you had already voted?
Yeah, so right there. So how he left,
So you didn't cast a ballot at the library that day?
I did.
Okay, because it,
And school can go together, sometime I voted.
yeah, because this is you as well?
Yes.
Okay, and that's your absentee ballot that we got back on the November 3rd.
Okay.
So, are these both you?
Yes.
These are both you? Okay, so, we can only count one.
Okay.
And so the recommendation is that we disapprove the returned absentee ballot and count his in person at the library 10/30/2020 vote.
Because neither of them were casted.
This one was cast.
That was
Right,
cast.
the in-person
Okay.
one.
Okay,
This one was returned after
Okay.
the fact.
okay.
So, do you have any issue with that, or, because you got to vote the one ballot for this election? Okay, any questions from you guys?
No.
No.
No?
Okay,
Mr. Taylor is satisfied with that. You, okay? We'll make sure that, that your vote counted.
And they did tell you at the library that you had already voted.
First time I went to the library, they did, what I was counting. And it was it, and, so that, sometime I didn't go, and,
gotcha.
somebody came to my house twice. First time I went home, sometime, I'm on
Okay.
board.
Okay, so you went to the library twice,
Yeah.
gotcha. So the first time, he was able to vote the regular ballot.
Right.
The second time you went to the library, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, they told you you'd already voted. Okay. And then you went ahead and sent in the absentee ballot, just, okay. Okay. So my recommendation to you all is that we disapprove that returned absentee ballot.
Right.
And we'll just need a motion on that.
Okay. For me.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Said motion has been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
time,
Mr.
we
Taylor.
appreciate it.
You too.
Thank you, William. Thank
Take care now.
you. All right.
Let us know if you have any other questions. Okay, so then, we had 3 other, same situation, they voted in person, and then also cast an absentee by mail ballot. I will say that in this election, absentee by mail with the high numbers and with the confusion and with the different groups reaching out to the voters, they were thoroughly confused. We had numerous people who called and basically asked the same thing. Do I still need to turn in my absentee ballot? We had people who got phone calls for different things from different groups, and they showed up to vote again because they were told their first time didn't count.
Absolutely.
And so the process works. The process flags you as a potential double voter. We might not catch you right at that moment. You might think you got away with it right at that moment, but when we audit and we see the conflicts, that's when we follow up. Typically, and I can't speak for every county, but typically, it's older people, it's people who were just confused by the process, and I
Right.
don't think they had any ill intent.
Right.
There were many texts for folk who have to get texts. Even
Right.
after you voted, they were still coming in, and they were still coming in the mail.
Right.
Right.
It was almost nonstop,
Yeah, I
which was good to encourage people to vote.
Right,
But I can see how it can be confusing for
Right.
people who aren't educated on the process.
exactly. And so I'm gonna pass these 3 around to you. These 3, we don't need to retrieve anything because they have an absentee ballot, that was checked in as not received, and that's due to the fact that they had already voted. And their, ATV is in there. I'll just start this way. And that's those 3. Well, then I have three voters who cast an absentee ballot in September and then passed away in September. And the statute is clear that you need to be alive on election day in order to cast a ballot in the election. We have to challenge you by election day. So anybody that, we get death certificates on a monthly basis, and we also pull list maintenance death lists on a daily basis during election time. So we're always doing list maintenance, comparing deaths with voters and removing. So we were removing at this time still, but they had already cast their absentee ballot. So the ballot was already tabulated. I have the death certificates listed here and the information for their absentee ballot. And if you approve these, then we'll need to retrieve and deduct the ballot cast and the votes from these three individuals. I'll start here.
Thank you.
Just real quick, while you're reviewing those, we have 7 voters who were adjudged guilty of a felony and whose citizenship rights had not yet been restored. And that's standard in every election. This happens. So I'm going to pass these around. All of the accompanying documentation is with them as well, including their same-day registrations, ATVs, all that.
Thank
With the exception of one of them. One of them cast the ballot, but then wasn't able to get processed because they were flagged as a immediate felon, meaning we didn't have to research it, so that individual doesn't have voter history at all yet. The others have voter history that we'll need to remove, depending upon your approval.
Thank you. Here's a- Did you get the three who had died back? There's one I didn't see. It's this one right here. Chuck, thank you. All right, there you go, thank you.
final one is also the voter already voted. In this case, this individual had cast an absentee by mail ballot, which was tabulated on the 10-6 absentee meeting. Then she went to vote in person at Pikeville. The system would have flagged her as voter already voted. I'm not sure what the interaction was between the precinct official and the voter, but they somehow came to the conclusion that they should same-day register this individual. Maybe, I don't know what happened. Maybe she said, well, that wasn't me, I didn't vote, something like that. That's my theory anyway. They did a same-day registration and allowed her to vote again. It happens, it's fixable. In this case, we recommend that you disapprove the ballot that was tabulated at Pikeville Harmony Lodge, which would have been the second ballot, and we keep her absentee by mail ballot from 10-6. That's right.
Thank you.
That's the last one. The standard there should have been to offer the voter a provisional ballot
Right.
instead of same-day registering. But I don't know if she didn't go in and say, I'm not registered. They
Right.
just
Right.
did a registration. So.
I haven't seen this one. Or is it still going around the table?
Which one is that?
Fine. Might be still going around.
It's not, they took them off.
All right. Thank you.
So no one who had a conviction has actually challenged your research?
No, sir.
I guess they believed what you said.
I think you,
Well, they knew or they, you know. I don't think most people vote twice on purpose. Not most people,
All right.
I think.
Unfortunately, part of this process is for me to turn all of the documentation over to the State Board of Elections investigators.
Right,
We're not investigators. I don't investigate why
right.
he did it. That's their responsibility, so. And we'll do that next week. We'll turn all that over.
Mm.
So in that case, I just need, for the 15, just
To be
a
approved.
motion to reject the
Motion.
absentee.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we retrieve and deduct these 15 ballots as requested by the director.
Second.
Said motion has been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We'll pass around the cover sheet for the manual edits that we'll do based on that. So that's all we have for this morning. We'll recess until 3. At that time, we'll need a motion, well, at this time, we'll need a motion from you all to amend the afternoon agenda to add the preliminary consideration of the Register of Deeds election protest. That'll be the first item that we start with at 3 p.m. If anyone wants to make a motion for that.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we amend the said agenda to include the preliminary consideration of the election protest to be included to the agenda for the afternoon session.
I'll second.
Said motion has been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carried.
So we-
Recess.
Yeah, you would just recess until 3 o'clock. at this
We
point.
stand in.
All right. So I'm assuming we'll go off the air until 3?
We'll be back at 3.